Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Power utility Eskom has sought to allay fears of the country slipping into stage 16 of load shedding. It all comes after the National Energy Regulator of South Africa, NERSA, approved the guidelines for implementing load shedding up to stage 16. Now, the newly released guidelines will allow Eskom to implement drastic load shedding beyond stage 8. But Eskom says the system has been gradually improving with no drastic changes of load shedding on the cards. Stage 6 is still the highest stage of load shedding implemented to date, but Eskom continues to battle an energy crisis, which NERSA says makes it necessary to make provision for any eventuality. Stage 16 of load shedding will see 80% of power cuts implemented, with the switch-off time seeing consumers going up to 20 hours a day without electricity.
Edition 3, which is the current code of practice that NERSA has recently approved, caters for up to level 16 or stage 16 of load shedding. This by no means that we are expecting or there is an imminent stage 16, but it's simply a way of preparing the system operator in eventuality that would require him to be able to operate the system under such conditions.
We are now on day 12 without any load shedding. We've seen in December, we actually spent 19 days without load shedding. We've seen from January up until now, April, that we've had less stages or lower stages of load shedding, if you may. So basically that just shows that our plans, which is the generation recovery or operational recovery plan, is indeed yielding the desired result.
Let's get some more reaction on this. We're joined now by Professor Sampson Mamphweli, who's the head of Energy Secretariat at the South African National Energy Development Institute. A very good evening to you, Professor. Thank you so much for your time. Eskom has tried to allay some of the concerns of looming heightened stages of load shedding, but of course, NERSA's guidelines have brought about a sense of discomfort. How should we begin to interpret NERSA's latest approval?
Good evening to you and the viewers. So the NERSA approval comes after the submission by the National Rationalized Specification Association. And the association basically came up with the National Code of Practice, which basically guides Eskom when implementing load shedding or load reduction in response to the constraints in the power system. So the guidelines, like we all know, go from stage 1 all the way to stage 16. However, Eskom is correct to say that those are just the guidelines to guide Eskom should the system gets into an emergency kind of a situation. That is something that they could have in the arsenal in terms of implementation. However, we all know that Eskom, we're not going to get to that kind of level. In the past, the association made the determination up until stage 8 load shedding. So when we reach stage 8 load shedding, what happens is that from stage 9 onwards, the system operator was having kind of a prerogative to determine what to do, because they have quite a number of various other options to implement to basically stop the collapse or prevent the collapse of the national grid. So in the past, the code of practice was ending at stage 8 load shedding, and then thereafter Eskom was having that kind of a prerogative. So we don't expect that will reach stage 16 load shedding, because the system is actually improving as per Eskom assertions just now.
You said the system is improving. I mean, we've also just heard a short while ago how we've gone for 12 days without load shedding. How then do the new guidelines assist Eskom and municipalities alike to ensure that the grid does remain stabilized?
So the new guidelines for me is just information mainly for the public. Because if you look at the guideline, it's nothing new from what Eskom has been implementing in terms of load shedding. The guidelines add the stages of load shedding, obviously up to stage 16, which is obviously not necessary at this particular point in time. There are issues around the notifications that need to get to the public. Eskom has been doing notifications in line with the version 2 of the guidelines. Version 3 just basically emphasizes the fact that Eskom needs to make those particular notifications to the public in time, and the manner in which the notifications need to be made to the public. This version also goes deeper into the various ways of system control. They go into things such as load shedding, load curtailment, your load limiting that is enabled by smart metering, the load switching, which is basically something that we do when we do things such as your geyser controls, enabled by smart metering. And it also emphasizes the issues around what we call the essential loads, which is where things such as your hospitals come on board, and we know about the court judgment that is aligned to those kind of things, the hospitals, the police stations, the clinics, as well as the schools. So this particular code goes deep into those kind of establishments and basically indicate what needs to happen when there is load shedding that may affect them as well.
Yeah. So as the country edges closer to winter, I mean, today is a perfect day of an example of what the days ahead are going to look like. I mean, you, Professor, are wearing a polo neck. Energy demand, of course, is expected to increase. How drastic can we expect the pattern to change? Will it be that drastic? What can we expect as we go into the colder season?
As things stand, Eskom is able to generate some reserves. The demand is slightly low. I've been tracking it. It was between 24,000 megawatts and 25,000 megawatts in terms of the peak demand, which is quite manageable. Eskom has removed quite a lot of megawatts. It was, I think the last time I checked, it was around 8,000 megawatts that was down for planned maintenance. We expect that some of those units will come live in preparation for the winter, and then we may not have higher intensities of load shedding because of those units coming back to life. The reason why Eskom is able to generate reserves, part of the reasons is that we've seen a lot of small-scale embedded generation of rooftop solar PV that's coming on board, especially in homes and as well as businesses. It has ramped up to about 6 gigawatts or 6,000 megawatts. So during the day, Eskom is able to use the megawatts that has been offsetted by that kind of installations to produce or to generate reserves. So I don't expect that if all these initiatives still come to fruition, load shedding will intensify heavily. As things stand, we are having a lot of wind blowing around the country, especially in the Western Cape. While it brings the unfortunate incidences of roofs blowing away roofs and things like that, we have a lot of wind energy that's coming on board in that particular side of the country. And we expect that this kind of winds will proceed right into the winter months, and thereby shielding us from load shedding in areas where these turbines will still be able to blow, as opposed to areas such as the city of Cape Town, where these turbines will have to unfortunately stop blowing because of the or turning because of the wind, of the very high velocities of wind that can basically break the turbines.
Yeah, of course we know should load shedding increase, it does have a ripple effect on businesses. I mean, you spoke right now about some of the interventions that households have put into place to ensure that the economy, of course, continues to function. How imperative is it for what you've predicted, what you're forecasting ahead of the colder winter months to really play out, as you say, because of the ripple effect we know load shedding has on the state of the country's economy?
It's quite very important because if you look at the impact of load shedding on the economy, on the gross domestic product, it's quite massive. It's taking away about 1.2 to 1.5% of the GDP growth, and that's quite extensive. If you look at the fact that our economy has been struggling from the COVID-19 pandemic, and now it's struggling from the insecurity of supply of electricity. However, the big businesses, those that can afford, have started putting in measures in place to shield themselves from load shedding, and things are improving. If you look at the time when the Minister of Electricity came on board, for instance, the energy availability factor of the coal fleet was sitting at about 41%. Now it's hovering around 51%. There's a 10% improvement, and that is one of the major determining factors of load shedding. Once that improves to above 70%, load shedding stops immediately. And what happens is when the electricity the supply is not guaranteed, and businesses go for alternatives, they basically pass on the cost of those alternatives to the consumers, which makes the goods and services more expensive, thereby affecting the poor quite greatly, which is why I think government is confronting this particular challenge the way they have been doing through the Energy Action Plan.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Let's leave it there for now. Professor Sampson Mamphweli, who's head of Energy Secretariat at the South African National Energy Development Institute, bringing us, of course, up to speed with the latest developments around power utility Eskom, allaying fears of heightened stages of load shedding.